As the clock ticks down on the Maker's inevitable return, the man known as Doom will risk it all to try and restore his previous family, but when revelations about his and the Maker's deeper connection are shared, will it end up blowing up the Ultimates once and for all? Well, let's hop into the pages of the Ultimates issue number 17 and find out what happens next together, shall we? Alrighty then, so another Dr. Doom story comes packing a very interesting 4-dimensional gimmick to it. You see, every page comes packing 4 different panels, each which end up telling a completely different story told at a different point in time. Is this a bit of a mindfuck that's probably going to turn off some more casual readers? Absolutely. Is it also wildly creative and the sort of thing one can only really pull off in the medium of comics? Also yes. In order, the stories are more flashbacks to the early days of Reed Richards and what were meant to be the Fantastic Four. One story of Doom looking back in time to the life he was supposed to have that was stolen away from him by the Maker. Another where Doom attempts to kickstart something known as Project 4, a special side project within the Ultimates' own attempt to create heroes out of everyday citizens, this time by utilizing cosmic rays, and finally a story wherein Doom ends up having a very important conversation with Iron Lad, who is stretching himself much too thin at the moment, by manipulating the powers of the Immortus Engine to appear in multiple places across time and space. Got it? Good. As we see, Doom's attempt to recreate the Fantastic Four yielded fruit. He did actually end up creating a ton of new superhumans with powers similar to the first family, but it's just that. The powers are similar, not one-to-one. A fact of which drove him a little crazy in the beginning. Try though he might, he feels that something is missing. Something was literally cut from his very existence. We first see this rendered figuratively in very wonderful artistic fashion as Reed spends the majority of this story haunted by literal cutouts where Ben, Johnny, and Sue would normally be. Before later seeing this idea rendered very literally when we come to realize that the Maker, during his sick and twisted torture of Reed to turn him into Dr. Doom, surgically removed a piece of the man who would be Mr. Fantastic's brain. Why? Well, apparently that was the part of the brain that governed, joy and wonder, especially the stuff that comes with discovery, all the things that make Reed Reed. Doom laid awake many a nights wondering why the Maker was so particularly cruel to him. I mean, he corrupted and messed up the entire universe, but it really seems like he singled him out. And eventually Doom would get the answer from a universe-hopping Miles Morales, who revealed that, yeah, the Maker is actually from the original Ultimate Universe, and before he became a bad guy, he was that world's Reed Richards. So yeah, understandably, this revelation absolutely shakes Doom to his very core. You mean to tell me the guy who ruined my life is not only actually me, but he's not even from this Earth originally? Furthermore, in one Earth, Reed Richards becomes Mr. Fantastic, a beloved hero. In another, he becomes the Maker, a terrifying villain, and yet in a third, he becomes me, Doom. Truly, the multiverse is a cruel mistress. Worse still, now that I know the Maker is our ultimate enemy and that the ultimate enemy is me, how can I ever hope to stand with Iron Lad and the other heroes? This guy knows everything I'm going to do before I do it. I'm a liability, right? Iron Lad is not exactly much help in this situation because, let's face it, he's kind of a liability himself right now, monkeying around with the powers of the Immortus Engine, no doubt leading to a scenario where he will become Kang. But, that's a threat for another day. It's here, though, at his absolute lowest when he feels like he's ready to just give up completely. A very unlikely savior comes to Doom in the form of Hank Pym the Ant-Man, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The two weirdly are cut from similar cloth. As Ant-Man explains, he too was devastated to learn about the sort of person he is in the main 616 universe, but it was Captain America who told him that he's not the same guy and that those sins should not fall on his shoulders. New world, new you, new chance to make things right. Furthermore, unlike Doom Reed, Hank actually had his intelligence stolen from him by the Maker. He had to basically learn everything over again with the help of Janet. It was through that he learned that just because you're broken doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be fixed. Maybe you need to stop obsessing over the life you lost and the family that will never be. Instead, maybe you should count your blessings and actually live here in the here and now. Lord knows the Ultimates will probably not be able to succeed without you, and who knows, along the way you might actually be able to find yourself a new family worth fighting for. And you know what? Over time, that's exactly what happens. Doom opens up his heart and his mind, and he actually ends up being invited into the fold by Magna, one of his new superhero progenies who doesn't want to see Doom lock himself away and become a weird outcast. And indeed, once Doom starts taking Hank's advice, things start to change for him. They may not be the Fantastic Four, they're like will never come again. But with Doom's help and guidance, the new Fantastic Force might actually have a fighting chance. In fact, they do a really nice job tying this all back into the original Doom story, with Doom signaling his own growth and better understanding of himself by letting go of the original Fantastic Four lab mice, releasing them back into the wild so that they too may begin again. And so that was the Ultimates issue number 17, everybody, and overall I feel about this issue much how I felt about the Ultimate Spider-Man issue from this week, and that is, man, what a really awesome, really cool story that they probably could have turned into a whole entire arc if this new Ultimate Universe wasn't coming to an end sooner rather than later. Don't get me wrong, it's all beautiful and thematic and perfectly realized, this version of Reed Richards coming to a realization about who he actually is in the greater multiverse, trying to replace his family in the Fantastic Four before eventually realizing that's impossible, before ultimately opening himself up to newer possibilities, and finally coming out the other side a newer, better, changed man. It's all great stuff, and yet in the back of my mind I'm like, you could have done so much with this. This totally could have been the setup for a Fantastic Four spin-off mini, hell, maybe even an ongoing in and of itself. But, you know, like I said, this new Ultimate Universe is coming to an end, and as such, we gotta hit the turbos on a lot of these stories. I'm certainly glad Doom got an issue all to himself that actually wrapped up a lot of his bigger character beats and certainly primes him for one final showdown with the Maker when the time comes. This is also probably an issue that more than anything ends up justifying the existence of that Miles Morales Spider-Man Incursion book, because to really get the most out of this single story, you also need to know what happened with Miles, what he told Doom, but also what was going on with Hank Pym. And that stuff you absolutely wouldn't know if you weren't reading that other book. As I said before, and what certainly bears repeating, I absolutely love how this story is told. It really utilizes the unique storytelling medium of comic books, and it ends up making the art every bit as important as the words, hell, almost more important than the words in some cases. When they finally do end up closing the book on this brand new Ultimate Universe, I think a few particular stories and character arcs will end up being the cream that rises to the top, and I think what they do with Doom here is certainly among them. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this issue a very strong 9 out of 10, and I'll be really interested to see how this whole thing ends up shaking out. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.